Here's a tweet from Eric Thomas. Honey, I checked the LinkedIn page for Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian, 6 feet, 5 inches tall, and under profession, it just said a real one.
Alexis Ohanian is truly a real one because he joins us today from Capitol Hill, where he's speaking with policymakers to fight for paid family leave. Good morning.
Hey there. Good morning.
All right. So tell us what you're up to in D.C. right now.
Sure. Well, I'm down here advocating for paid family leave. I am with a bunch of dadvocates, my fellow American dads, a number of whom were able to take paternity leave because of a generous move by Dove Men Plus Care to provide them with $5,000 to actually be able to take time with their families for the birth of their child. Because 1 in 5 American men don't have access to paid paternity leave, and we want to change that for all men, all women here in the U.S.
All right, so you mentioned the dadvocates, and you've talked about how you hadn't really thought that much about the issue of parental leave before you became a parent yourself. So how did that experience change you?
Well, look, when I came back to Reddit in 2014 to lead the turnaround, there was not even an HR department, let alone policy. And Caitlin Holloway was our first hire there, built out the team, built out the policy, and really brought me up to speed with this idea. And at the time, paid family leave was just table stakes. It is basically the minimum you need in terms of a policy to attract and retain the best talent right now. But it was only years later when I went and took the policy myself and took my full 16 weeks of leave that I realized what an impact it can have in the life of a family when they need it most, when they are welcoming a newborn. And, my wife had some pretty well documented and very serious complications after childbirth. And for every advantage that we have as a family in terms of wealth and access and support, it was still a traumatic experience. And coming out of that, I didn't want a single employee of mine or even a single fellow American to have to just endure that without knowing they could have time to be there for their loved ones. And so that's when it really became an issue that I wanted to advocate for nationwide. And that's one of the reasons why we're here on the Hill.
Well, you mentioned that you and Serena have been so open about her near fatal complications, having your child, Olympia. Why do you feel like it's so important to talk about?
Well, my wife has always been very outspoken about things that I think many people in her position wouldn't normally talk about. To her credit, she has talked about struggling with postpartum. I mean, you can see it in her tweets. She has, I think, wanted to provide this window, and we have wanted to provide this window to the extent that it can show others that they can find support, that there is common ground, and that, frankly, there are real issues, there are real disparities in this country. And, in the wake of her story being told, we saw a huge discussion in this country about the disparity of maternal health between women of color and everyone else, and the drastic shortfall that exists there. Those are real systemic problems. Those are real challenges in our society that we're not going to solve overnight, but only by talking about them, by addressing them, and by using platforms can we actually start to get a conversation going.
Well, you wrote in a New York Times parenting column that 76% of fathers are back to work within a week after the birth or adoption of a child. So why do you think men are so reluctant to take time off of work after they become fathers, even when they have access to these leave programs?
I think it's a quickly eroding social stigma that exists. Before we experienced the traumatic childbirth, I wanted to take my leave and do so very publicly to be a role model for other men in tech, so that other men could say, you know what, this guy's doing it. He's the founder of a multi-billion-dollar company. No one's going to accuse him of being lazy or not caring about his career, but he still knows and believes that his family is even more important. And now it's become, in the last 2.5 years, we've seen Chance the Rapper cutting his tour dates short in order to be there for the birth of his second daughter. Right? We're seeing Daniel Hudson, a pitcher for the Washington Nationals, miss Game 1 of the NLCS because he wanted to be there for the birth of his third daughter. And the support that exists now online, rallying around these superstars at the top of their game, these dads who are electing to take advantage of the privilege they have to take that time, that's changing a mentality. And my father took one day off when I was born and was right back to work. But I think this generation of fathers now has more opportunities, in part because of how technology lets us do our work more flexibly, but also because we are now normalizing this behavior. And it's a behavior that reflects dads just being dads, not dads babysitting, but dads having a role and responsibility in their households. And I have yet to encounter a single person who thinks that dads being more involved with their families is a bad thing.
Well, you mentioned celebration online, and we have a tweet here from Nicole Cliff about that topic. It says, Prince Harry and Alexis Ohanian are my favorite. That's my wife guys. So what is it like for you to be so celebrated online for being such a supportive husband?
It is a very high praise and a very high bar. I mean, I'm flattered by those things. I try not to take them too seriously because the reality is I am far from a perfect husband. I'm far from a perfect dad. I have plenty of bad days. The reality is if we can in some way model a behavior that is good and that people take good things from it, like great. But we're not. I mean, we're all humans at the end of the day. And so by no means do I let myself get too big of a head about it because I know I still have a lot of work to do.
All right. You're humble and brilliant. This is amazing. Well, last question before you go. How can people get more involved in pushing for paid parental leave?
Well, one easy thing you can do right now is sign up for our pledge, dovemenpluscare.com/pledge. Take a look, read it. It's pretty straightforward. You don't have to be a dad to sign it. You just have to be an ally. And then if you are a father, I really encourage you not just spend the time, even if it's just on weekends, because again, let's say you don't get that option. Spend that time and document it and talk about it and normalize it. Normalize it around the office. Talk about the things that your kids are into. Let's dispel this myth that we have a work life as fathers and we have a home life as fathers, and the two are separate, because they're not. We bring our work life home, we bring our home life to work. And the more that we can normalize dads just talking about the little league game or taking a selfie with their kid, getting an ice cream, the more we change the perception of the roles that dads we know are playing and should continue to play a bigger and bigger one in their families' lives.
Well, Alexis, thank you so much for joining us today on such a busy day for you, and congratulations on being America's favorite dad.
Thanks.